Just because you can afford to pay for long-term care, does that mean you should have to? Melanie, a lot of people think of long-term care and they don't necessarily understand the cost to it, or they think they can afford to pay out of pocket for it. What is your take?
My take is that they need a strategy in addition to all of their overall estate planning, investment planning. They need to carve out a specific vehicle that's going to cover that expense, because if they don't, they're going to find out very quickly how expensive care is. Most clients that I have want to live at home. They don't want to go into a nursing home. So that care requires a lot of capital. And if you have something that you don't have to disrupt to raise cash to pay for, just a vehicle that you can access potentially tax-free, that's what I advise my clients.
For our viewers out there, long-term care doesn't refer to a specific type of care. It could mean staying in your home, going to an assisted living, nursing home
True.
care, right? But that doesn't discount needing to have a plan in place. From your experience, I know you've worked with wealthy clients in various different families throughout the US. What are some of the mistakes that you've seen families make when it comes to planning for care?
Not planning is
Not
what I
planning.
see. And then there's an event, whether it's temporary or permanent, where they're scrambling to find out who is going to take care of mom or dad, how are we going to afford this, what assets are going to cover this expense, where are they going to be placed, and if they want to live at home with 24-hour round-the-clock care, that gets really expensive. So I would say lack of planning for that event and just, oh, we'll figure it out is more of what I see. But the reality is when you're spending down those assets or you're having to liquidate assets to cover that expense, in addition to other, expenses like maybe their property tax and other things, it gets super expensive. Super expensive.
And that's interesting coming from you because most of your clients are on the wealthier side, right? And
Right.
so, would you say that most families underestimate the cost of long-term care? They put off that conversation. What is it about that conversation that doesn't seem to be had?
I think that they just almost like deciding to create a trust or take care of your estate planning. People just put it off. And then unfortunately, life happens or there's some kind of event where maybe they become like incapacitated. So I just think it's a lack of planning or an understanding of what long-term care is and how valuable and meaningful it is to have a portion of that carved off so that that takes care of it, when the time comes. And like you mentioned, and good point, they could live at home with round the clock care. If they needed assisted living and then maybe that transitions to memory care, they already have that taken care of.
Two things I want to mention to the viewers out there is that having a long-term care plan in place is different than the specific product or the specific strategy that we implement with them, right?
Right.
Because I think a lot of people out there, they're used to hearing about traditional long-term care insurance, which is, as you know, many have had a bad experience with.
Yes.
That use it or lose it type of mentality where I put a lot of money into an insurance policy, and if me or my wife doesn't use it, we lose that money. If they don't pay out the claim, we lose out, right? And there seems to be this inherent uncertainty around that.
Right.
And so I know you, myself, and we've helped a lot of clients together even, we focus more on asset-based long-term care.
Right.
And what has been your experience with, especially for wealthier clients, having more of that asset-based long-term care approach?
Well, I think what we realize is that, I have my area of expertise, but I knew enough to call you in to meet with a few clients, and it was very successful and meaningful and an eye opener for them. So, what I recommend is I always ask the question, what planning do they have in place? And if they have none, that's where you come in and I
Yeah.
introduce you and you take it from there, and you've been really helpful.
Of course, and it's always a pleasure working with you. And it's interesting because whether our clients have money in annuities, in IRAs, in brokerage accounts, where whatever assets they have, I always like to start with the first question being, if you were to need care today without a plan in place, how would you pay for it?
Exactly.
And then from there, we can decide maybe what asset we could fund an asset-based long-term care policy with.
Exactly.
Because remember that traditional long-term care insurance is standalone. Asset-based long-term care insurance is use it, or use it. And what we mean by that is you're going to have cash value. So there's always equity still inside of that policy or that plan. There's a death benefit. So your family is still going to leave with something, even if you don't ever use that plan for care. But then, third and most importantly, that if you do end up needing care, which the majority of Americans 65 and older do need care now, you have a dedicated monthly income you can pull from now. And I think about some of the clients that we've helped together, and not to name specifics, but these are people that have plenty of assets to pay for care, right? But why would I pay for care when I can have a strategy and I can lend that risk off to an insurance company, right?
Right. And the irony too, Joe, is people insure their phone, their car. If
Yes.
you rent, you've got renter's insurance. Like, but then if you bring up insurance of any kind, usually that's taboo. But most wealthy people know that they're very familiar with insurances of all types because that's basically an asset class, but it just leverages someone else's money is essentially
And so for
what
your
it does.
clients, what is the typical cost for care you're seeing these days?
I'm seeing anywhere from 9 to 12,000 a month to
Gosh.
reside in an assisted living or memory care
Wow.
facility.
And is that a bill that these people plan for, or not necessarily?
No, not necessarily. I just had someone that fell a few times, and her family just had to say, she can't live at home anymore. She can't take care of herself. She can't meet some of the criteria that decides whether you need long term care. So they moved her, and right away, 9,000 a month is what she's going to have to pay because
Gosh,
they can't take care of her.
that's
So
a lot of money.
it
I
is
don't, no matter how wealthy you are, right?
exactly
And I always tell people long-term care shows up as a bill at your doorstep with no end date.
no end
It
date.
doesn't care what other bills you have. It doesn't
No.
care about the strain on the family. It doesn't care about your spouses, your loved ones. It's going to keep showing up every month, and it's ready to
Every
collect.
month, and you still have property tax, personal income tax. The list can go on and on. Um, but that's like an immediate. Where am I going to get the money to pay for this situation?
Yeah, it's a lot. And Melanie, this is a great conversation, especially to have with someone like yourself that has so much experience working with, retirees, elderly. They're all most of your families you work with are wealthy. So our audience out there that thinks they can self-fund long-term care, this is great for them to hear. And I want people to be reminded, I just always like to push this, but if you are used to hearing about long-term care insurance, remember that what we are talking about today is asset-based long-term care. We're not trying to create expenses for people, right? We're trying to create plans that leverage their assets they currently have, allow them to continue building wealth, allow them to be tax advantageous, and to build a larger legacy as well,
Yes.
right? We're not here to create expenses for you guys. Melanie, one thing a lot of people are not aware of is some of the legislation that has changed over the years to make it more beneficial in helping people plan for long term care. Two of the biggest things that stick out to me right now are the legislation that has changed around life insurance. So, what I mean by that is life insurance policies, in some cases now, if they're structured properly, can be accessed tax free for long term care while you're still alive. In some cases, we can use life insurance policies to create a monthly income stream to pay for long term care. And then secondly is how legislation has changed around annuities. So they've implemented what's called the Pension Protection Act, which allows people to pull tax-free income from an otherwise taxable annuity and use that for care as well. And I know we've been talking a lot today about wealthy people that may feel like they can fund care on their own. The long-term care conversation, I really truly believe it's important from middle class families all the way up to higher net worth, of course. What's your takeaway?
Well, you've been really a valuable resource to even my own family members. And, what I mean by that is people who are just working, putting money into different types of retirement vehicles. Those funds can be parlayed into something that has a long-term care component. So you don't have to be wealthy. If you have a retirement vehicle, savings, that's where the asset-based care comes into play. They can take that and put it into a vehicle that's going to cover that type of care when the time arises. So you don't necessarily have to be wealthy, and most aren't, but it's something that anyone can look into. It's available to everyone.
That's a great point you bring up. And I wanted to touch on one last point, which is if you are someone that is growing out assets in retirement, such as the 401k, like you said, we can oftentimes build a long-term care plan to allow you to continue growing out your wealth and not necessarily just create an expense, but have long-term care benefits now built into your retirement plan.
Definitely.
So it's a great point you share. And Melanie, if our audience wants to be able to reach out to you, what is the best way to find you?
I will definitely give you my information to display, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome. And if you guys found today's content helpful, subscribe, give us a like, leave a comment in the section below. We'd love to hear from you, and we are very excited to keep sharing helpful long-term care information with you guys and to be a resource for you and your families. Thank you for tuning in.